Hello, welcome to Preparing Reading Responses. This is a recording for ORGL 398, Research Foundations for Understanding. I'm Dr. O'Neill. Writing reading responses is a critical part of the course. In the reading responses, you'll be able to give me an idea of what you understand from the reading, what questions you might have, how it applies to you, and so forth. So we'll go over what the assignment actually requires, and then we'll talk about how to compose one. First, let's read the description. I'll read it with you. Reading questions and discussion topics will be assigned. Topics will often ask you to consider and write about a specific point or question raised in a reading or viewing assignment. Your postings, which will go on the discussion board, will demonstrate critical thinking, an understanding and consideration of multiple and equally possible perspectives, and a sense of how the reading does or does not aid in your understanding of your place in the conversation. Because these are regular reading responses and therefore discussion posts, you should use them to build the skills you always need: clarity, organization, style, and voice. You should always use quotation, paraphrase, and citation where appropriate to practice. Because these are examples of academic writing, you should write in standard American English. You may also use these reflections to help bolster the work done in your bibliography list. Each of these responses should be 500 to 750 words. That's about 2 to 3 pages, double-spaced. If you would like to write more, that is fine with me, but please make it worth my while. Reading responses are a genre that most students encounter at college at some point in their college careers. A reading response may mean different things to different professors in specific, but generally speaking, when an academic professor assigns a response essay or a response paper or a reading response, what we usually ask is an essay that involves critical thinking, asking questions of the text and the author, making connections between the concepts and the ideas in the reading, as well as what they mean to you, and then mapping your own experience and understanding onto the text. In other words, responding to a text or an idea involves thinking, understanding, inquiring, reflecting, and learning. If you want some backstory on why professors ask for reading responses, you can take a few minutes to read about it at this link at the OWL at Purdue University. This is a handy resource. If you have not used it before, please look around and explore. I assign responses because I believe that we're learning about what we think when we write about what we're reading. E.M. Forster, who wrote A Passage to India, once put it, "How do I know what I think until I see what I say?" I encourage you to take your time when you write responses so that you too can see what you think because of the way you write. A reading response involves a number of specific and complicated skills, things that you probably already are aware of, but things that now need to take you to a higher level. For example, the details of quoting appropriately and effectively, how you express that you understand a concept or a quotation or an idea in the reading, and then how you reflect on it and respond to it. Those specific sets of skills are what get addressed in the next set of slides. The key to quoting a reading well is to do it effectively. There are two things to keep in mind, and both of them form a frame around whatever the words are inside the quotations. So let's think about that. When you use a quotation, you introduce it and you follow it up. To orient the reader, you introduce a quotation with some sort of signal phrase or perhaps an attribution to an author. For example, George Washington famously declared his honesty when he admitted, and then a set of quotation marks in the quotation. Or, for example, down at the bottom of that example list, although some would disagree, I would suggest that Bill Keegan is correct when he notes. To orient the reader, introducing a quotation is a very good idea. This way, when we read the actual quotation, we've been prepared for what you intended to mean. On the other side of the quotation, after the citation, which is the in-text set of parentheses in order to indicate a page number and an author's last name, you would always follow up a quotation with some sort of paraphrase or summary. There's really no other way to demonstrate that you've understood it, and college professors will expect you to incorporate some sort of follow-up in which you explain before you give us your response on it. For example, in other words, we know that sea levels are rising because of climate change, not necessarily just carbon emissions. Note how that clarifies and we know what the previous quotation must have said because this is now explaining it. You can use signal phrases like "in other words," or "her point it seems," or "that is to say," or "to summarize" Phrases like that will help you signal to a reader that you're giving a paraphrase or a summary of the primary idea. Finally, remember that as you write, the better your writing will be. The more you think about what you're reading, the better your thinking will be. When you do those two together, the more unified they become. I enjoy seeing how people think on the page. Please use that difference to your advantage. And I like to think too, by the way. When I get responses that let that happen, it makes me happy. Go to it.